Hi, everyone. Hey. All right. An intimate crowd of people that are fascinated by producers. Welcome, everyone. My name's Matt Diener. I'm the CEO of Screen Producers Australia. Thank you for being here. Hello. Hi. Can I just get a check in the audience? Who is working in the industry currently? Can you put your hands up? Just one, or most of everyone? And the others are interested, wanting to be working in the industry? Is that, yep. Curiosity. And just, are you all identifying as producers? How many people see themselves as producers? Okay, and other people are trying to learn the tricks of producing or just curious. All right. Well, you're in for an intimate masterclass today because you've, I think there's almost as many people in the audience as there are on stage here, people. But you've got some of Australia's finest producers that are running very interesting and successful businesses behind the content that we're going to sort of look at and showcase today. So what we're going to do is have a bit of an introduction of everyone here with me, and then we're going to show some of the clips, and everyone's going to have a chance to talk about the productions that are nominated for AACTA Awards, and we're obviously delighted to be here and working with AACTA as part of this. And then we'll open up the floor for lots of questions, and as there are so many people here today, we will give everyone an opportunity to actually have a bit of a conversation. If you've got lots of questions, make sure you store them up. So I just need to make sure, what did I do with my clicker? Oh, there. Thank you, Vincent. The one thing I've got to do, I forget. All right. Now, everyone, to my right is Bob Campbell, who is is your title CEO? What's your title, Bob? Chairman, much more impressive, of Screen Time, which is a business that's been operating for how long? Microphone. Sorry. There we go. All right. And to Bob's right is a lady called Melissa Kelly, who is, what's your title, Melissa? What do you call yourselves? Producer and company director. And company director of Factor 30 Films, Factor 30. Which is a business that's been running for...
Since 2004.
Right. Great. And you are West Australian based. You are sort of Sydney, and also you got an arm in Auckland. There we go. Brilliant. Vincent Sheehan, you are the...
Producer.
Producer is the title of Porchlight Films.
Producing company. Director, yep.
And it has been a business that's been running for...
20 years.
20 years. You are so young. And that is a business based in...
Sydney.
Mm. And on my far right is Sonja Armstrong. And Sonja, you are the... producer /
company director
of a business called
Essential Media,
which has been running for
I don't know, about 11 years, but been producing for a lot longer.
Brilliant. And so that's a very good question, actually. When did you start producing? How many years ago?
22 after I left the AFC.
Right. God almighty. Vincent, how long have you been producing for?
Yeah, 20 years.
20 years. Melissa?
13 years.
13. All right. Bob, you don't want to talk about that.
But I've been in the industry for 20 years.
Yeah, right. So there's a lot of experience here, and we'll get a chance to interrogate all these great people about everything that you need to know. There is a lady missing today who followed up sick and is unable to be here with us. It's Chloe Rickard from Jungle, who is going to talk about no activity. And none of us felt confident enough to pretend that we were Chloe or had her experience, but I'm happy to maybe just go to the first slide, which was going to be here's us, SPA. I should just mention that SPA, or Screen Producers Australia, is the body that looks after the production businesses, and we advocate for their needs and desires and try to unify the industry to get traction with government around those things, and also work to negotiate all of the conditions for employment of the people that work in the industry. So all of the different parts of the sector are basically employed by the people who are on this stage, and those unifying elements of this business, of the businesses, are to hold intellectual property in the rights that they obtain from the creatives, and then work to maximise the revenue and the export potential and all of the opportunities that come from selling the work that we create. And that's what we do. And we also run events and work closely with AFTRS, including Put On Screen Forever. If anyone's been to that, you will know about it, because you probably have overconsumed in alcohol for a few days and learnt way too much. Right, so this is me. Sorry, we'll get to the slides. These are the people here today, except for Chloe. First up was Chloe's title slide for no activity. The only thing I would say about no activity before you run the clip is that most of you'll know it's been remade. It's currently airing on Stan as No Activity, but it's remade by Will Farrell's production company, and here's a clip.
In progress.
We've got a code 7, I'm seeing backup.
Car 72 responding, we are heading south along Tenement Avenue, heading towards location.
Code 7, it's a priority 1. Car 72 coming.
Almost there. Nearly there.
Use of deadly force is authorised.
Straight to the lights. Yep. Right. Left. Where is it? He's okay. Got a visual on the suspect first floor.
Got a visual on the suspect.
First shot.
I'm sure. We have the shot. Take the shot.
Stokes, take the shot! Headshot.
Okay, end of drill.
Yes! Nailed that. Woo.
How we go?
17 minutes, 38 seconds response time.
Not bad.
Not bad.
It's not great either.
Yeah, but we had all
The traffic at the domain, there was a rocker stand put on.
There was lots of kids that we had to try not to hit.
Well, as long as you're happy with it, that's the important thing.
I'm happy with it.
Me too.
See you at the station.
Thanks, boys. Thank you.
Nice. All right. Well, I can't really offer you much about that in Chloe's absence, other than that it's a great series and that you should really check it out if you haven't already. And I think part of its brilliance is that it's a simple premise, great writing, an inexpensive production to actually pull off, because a lot of it's set in set sort of sequences and scenes, which I think was part of the appeal for the commissioning people. But I will shut up at that point because I probably shouldn't. I'm being unfair to Chloe given that she's not here. All right, skipping through. Second up, we have Bob talking about Janet King. Now, we can't play a clip from Janet. For some reason, it didn't load properly, but I wanted to use the opportunity to at least explore with Bob a little bit of the background of Janet King. And I think, can I just get a test in the audience? Who's seen Janet King or a variation of Janet King? Who? Okay, yeah. All right, so you might need to just explain a little bit. Yeah, it's done reasonably well. It's in terms of season renewal. And it's a great premise. So do you want to just introduce it a little bit and explain where it came from?
Sure. We've made about 48 episodes of Janet King. It came out of a show called Crownies, which is on the ABC, that met with limited success, to be honest, both critically and commercially. But there were elements that the ABC liked and elements that we thought we could develop. And one of the keys to it was Marta Dusseldorf and her role as Janet King as a deputy public prosecutor who's morphed into a human rights commissioner and who's done special assignments. So it was not necessarily originally designed for Marta, but she certainly stepped up and been the key figure in that. So it's taken from the pages of the newspapers and the television news. The last subject we touched on was organised crime and sport, and we're just talking to the ABC about a fourth season now. So it's written for a small core cast, shot all on location, although I must say we do build some sets in and around the locations, primarily out at Parramatta. And it's basically Crownies was a 22 one-hour order, and subsequently Janet King's been 3 series of 8 1 hours. Did
you use the same writing team or just change
basically,
that?
there's a core team led by Greg Haddrick and Felicity Packard, but we've introduced a number of young writers as it's gone along. Yeah. It's a complex script, it's layered, and it's one of the key elements in the writing team is to get the voice of Janet, and that's quite hard to do. This is a woman in her late 30s. She's in a relationship. She's got a couple of kids. She's got to be a dominant figure as the deputy public prosecutor, but she's also got to be warm enough authoritarian enough on the one hand and warm enough on the other for the audience to embrace her. So it's written primarily for the audience, but it's written, of course, for the audience, but it's written with the capability of Marta Dusseldorf firmly in the frame.
Did the ABC position to you the type when you were going through the conversation around what this show could be? Did they have a particular audience that they were asking you to write for or create for as part of that process, or was it very much that you were coming to them and you had in mind what she should be, and it was the expectations were met, or surprised for anyone in terms of who actually responded to it?
Well, I think you're attributing a lot of science to what's basically art. So the truth of the matter is that these things are sold, in my experience, on great stories. And if you've got a particular storyline, drugs and organised crime in sport, gangs in southwestern Sydney and guns, the stories evolve from that. We've relied on a lot of public domain information. We've relied on a lot of help from the police and from one of the former retired deputy public prosecutors, because a lot of what we do we find best if it's based in truth, based on fact. We weren't there for the conversation, so you can't write it literally, but you can surround the script with a basic knowledge of what's gone on, because the truth of it is that in Janet King, in Underbelly, and a lot of the things we've done, you couldn't make half of it up. So it's grounded in fact. That's a very useful starting point, and then we write around those events.
Okay. And having a strong female protagonist and someone in a same-sex relationship, were any of those controversial? In fact, the kind of the goal that you were looking for in terms of something that would go beyond the normal sort of police procedural sort of idea of what these things may have ended up being?
No, I think we were doing a legal procedural with the female audience very much in mind, and that was why I wanted to create these points of difference. The fact that Janet's in a same-sex relationship is neither here nor there to the story. It just is, as it should be. The fact that she was the dominant voice, I think, moulded a lot of the characterisation around her, and I think that was a good thing. But that balance has to be very carefully trod in the fact that she's a dominant voice, a strong woman, leading a team of people, but at the same time, when it comes down to it, she's got that humane touch that when people are in crisis or when it needs a shoulder to cry on, she's there too. So it's quite a fine line to walk.
Yeah. And has it sold well internationally? Has it done well for you and for the ABC?
The international sales in context have been pretty good. The distribution advance is by and large recouped, which is a sense of great relief to the London-based distributor. Sold to Acorn in America, and sold fairly widely in Canada, the UK, and in some of the Baltic countries.
Okay, brilliant. And is Marta on the producing side as well, or got a role in terms of helping steer that, or in any way, or is she very much the actress?
No, she's very much Marta, which means she's involved in the scripting process. She sits in the script meetings and is a welcome contributor. Beyond that, she's busy. She's a very in-demand actress, so fitting her schedule around this would be very hard, I would have thought. Which is part and parcel. She loves to give time to it, and it's very good when she's in the room, but her time is limited. But she's particularly good in the scripting process, and particularly good in saying, that's not quite my voice, this is my voice. And so it's welcome, and the contribution is essential to the process.
She's had an incredible run, actually, in terms of not only this series, but obviously A Place Called Home, and she's been able to develop a character that's, in this instance, that's been well received, well responded to by a lot of Australians and maybe internationally as well. So it's a great gift, I suppose, in many ways. And many actors and actresses don't receive that, but it's a credit, I suppose, to her skill and her rapport with an audience.
Yeah,
and a whole heap of people behind the scene. That's
Well, I think she's been gifted complex and interesting scripts, which I think suits her particular characterisation of Janet King. And I think she's one of those rare actors who can be, on the one hand, authoritarian and severe, and on the other hand, warm and embracing. So, we love her and think she's special, and she's, A Place to Call Home, Jack Irish, and Janet King means she's really busy, but she's also very grounded and with a long background in theatre, where you're often a long time between gigs, and when you are, you're not exactly lavishly paid, means that she regards every role preciously and wants to improve on it series by series, and that's a great gift, I think.
Brilliant. And Bob, you're up for what awards tomorrow or already? What's happened in terms of the run for the actors for the show?
She's up for Best Lead Actor in a Series, I think, is the right characterisation of the category, and Best Drama. So very, very nice to be nominated,
Very
always.
good. Would you please give a round of applause for Bob and Screen Time crowd for Janet King? All right. Wishing you the best. If you've got no competitors on this stage today for that, have you? So yeah, I'm just wondering if we're going to be competing against each other. Oh, you guys are. There we are. We've got 2 feature films now to talk about. All right. Let me go now to Melissa Kelly, The Hounds of Love. And should we play the clip first, Melissa? And
We have the American poster.
the American poster of this. Oh, there we go. I have to explain to us what's different about that. You see, Bob's eager to watch. He's and just before I play the clip, who's seen Hounds of Love? Oh, there's just as many as Janet King. There you go. What a great.
Give you my number, and
Yes.
you can call me for therapy anytime.
Yeah, we're about to. Are we about to be scared? We probably are. All right, here's the clip.
You done something different? You look beautiful. Just like you did the day we met. And let's go and have a little bit of fun.
Hey, love, do you want a lift?
Yeah, alright.
All right, jump on in.
So how long have you two been together?
Since I was like 13.
Please try and relax. Those girls, all runaways, all with stories just like this one. I think you should do it together. And there is just something about you that makes me want you all to myself.
He doesn't love you. Just uses you.
Look at me. Look at me. You're the queen. I'll worship you.
Very nice, very scary. Well
The
done.
comedy we cooked up.
The comedy, yeah. Yeah, it was an incredible cast. Okay, Melissa, tell us how this got dreamt up, this comedy for light family viewing.
So there are 2 parts to the story. Ben's mum, Ben Young is the writer and director of the film. His mum, Felicity Young, is an author, and she's a crime fiction author. And Ben used to read a lot of her research material. And he did read a book which was about women or couples who kill. And when he was reading the book, he thought that this is a really intriguing concept, which is why a woman would kill, and specifically why a woman would kill for love. And so that is the nucleus of the story, and he'd never seen it on screen before as well. So that is something that he wanted to explore. And then the other side of the story is I've known Ben for 10 years. We were at a function, and I hadn't seen him for quite some time, and I said, what have you been up to recently? And he said, I've been writing a lot. And I said, fantastic, would love to see something you've written. Very next morning, I've got a script in my inbox. I read it, it was absolutely fantastic. I said, we should work on something together. And Screen West that very week had an initiative which was called Directors Navigator, and they were looking for concepts. And so we came up with 3 concepts that we were allowed to pitch in a round robin. Hounds of Love was one of those concepts. Right. And we had distributors, sales agents, state agencies all come back with this project is something that you should pursue. And so that is the origin of so the concept was rattling around in his head, and then he had the opportunity to write the screenplay.
And then the progress of this, and Bob acknowledged that you've got a great cast. How did they come on, and at what point? Because usually cast is triggering finance and getting the whole thing together. So people have got to take a risk with you've done a number of projects, but time, Ben was first time. So
first time, while Ben wasn't an established director at that time, he had been working in the industry for 10 years. So he had 35 music video clips. He'd worked on children's television and TV commercials. So he had a body of work, but nothing that was a breakthrough moment. So it was very difficult for us to approach cast. We worked with Anusha Zarkesh, who was our casting director, and Anusha said, would you consider a comedian in the role? And we were like, well, which one? And I had my origins of producing are actually in comedy. So I worked for Artist Services for 3 years, and I know that comedians can be incredibly dark at times. And so when Stephen's name came up, we said, please, we would love to see him audition. And
because it's really his breakout roles have been actually not in comedy, haven't they? In terms of his broader industry acceptance of him as a broader actor, have been quite big.
Well, the Graham Kennedy role, which he did win an award for, he's still playing a comedian, but he's playing the real person. He's not playing for the comedy. So we knew that Stephen was a very fine actor, but for him to accept a role like this is incredibly brave, because he is one of Australia's best-loved comedians. We were in Brisbane recently promoting the film, and you couldn't walk 2 metres down the street without somebody coming out with a line from the castle. So we knew that this could be very damaging for his career, or it could be very wonderful for his career. And he was incredibly brave in saying, this is something that I want to pursue.
And look, there's probably a million questions that people might have about it, but tell us about how the reaction to it. You launched it in Venice.
In Venice.
And last year. Mm-hmm. And tell us how that experience was. First time in Venice launching a film?
First time in Venice launching a film, absolutely wonderful, incredibly exciting. Stephen couldn't be with us, so and neither could Ashley Cummings. Emma Booth joined us. It was a delightful experience, and we had a massive room, and during the screening we see like walkouts like you wouldn't believe. And I've got the editor on one side, I've got Ben on the other side, and I've got whispering in my ear, and is this normal? Is this okay? Have we made a bad film? And I was like, relax. The people who are leaving the cinema are with Zimmer frames. They have come into the wrong room. These are people who have somehow come in here thinking that this is a film about dogs.
Is that really true? Yeah,
there was a standing ovation, but I don't think you go to a film festival without a standing ovation. You know, festivals are very, they're very kind to filmmakers.
Yeah. Yeah. I think give yourself some credit there.
And then, so since Venice, the very next morning, Ben secured representation in the US. And since then, we've screened at over 50 international film festivals.
Wow, that's fantastic. Yeah. And, a little clap. Yeah, oh, crap. Because, I think people realise if you're in the game of making films, it's an incredibly difficult process, and it's not for the faint-hearted. And there are a lot of things that don't get off the ground. There are a lot of things that do get off the ground that don't get that sort of response. And you're working in WA, and this is an important and difficult space sometimes geographically to get projects up and running from.
Absolutely.
So it must be heartening to have that sort of boost going on in terms of your own business. You were a breakout award winner at our awards.
Thank you,
Lisa.
Spark.
It's a great credit. Is there anything that, I mean, part of the challenge, I think, with working with talent is often they can get the uplift from the project and Ben's doing other things. Have you been able to capitalise on some of the work that's coming out of this for you as well?
Yeah, so Ben was very lucky to pick up a US film maybe 3 or 4 months after Hounds premiered in Venice. And so he's, I call him the unstoppable Ben Young, absolutely fantastic. And so on that sort of riding on the back of that wave, while our lives don't change, we do get better quality meetings. So we can go to the US and we can say we're the producers of Hounds of Love and the door is now open. And it wasn't necessarily open before.
Great. Well, congratulations. And in terms of the AACTA Awards, tell us what you're up for and what you've been up for and potentially still in play. You've only got a couple of films against you that it's a big lead.
The amazing
today. Yes.
Jasper Jones,
yes.
and the incredible Lion. So we're up for 9 awards, which includes Best Film, Best Direction, Best Original Screenplay, Best Actress, Best Actor, Best Supporting Actress, Best Hair and Makeup, and Best Editing and Best Cinematography.
Congratulations, everyone. We wish you and Hounds of Love all the very best. And I think it's amazing how, because this was not a big budget film either.
No.
But it's travelling well, and we hope it gets a good box office run, which is, I guess, your priority right at the moment too.
Yeah. And we've been lucky. We had international success with releasing in the US, France, and the UK as well. So
brilliant.
International theatrical. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, congratulations again.
Thank you.
All right. Number 3. I think I'm checking we're doing all right for time. Vincent, we're going to be showing a little clip first up of Jasper Jones. Maybe we'll go straight to that. We'll have a watch.
Charlie. It's Jasper.
Who?
Jasper Jones.
What are you doing here?
I need your help.
Me? Why me?
Come with me. I'll show you.
Where?
Hurry up, Charlie. We gotta go.
I'm right. Didn't hurt.
Come on, follow me.
Why would Jasper Jones ask for my help? He's never even spoken to me before.
Jasper, where are we going?
People in town say he's dangerous. But I've always wondered what he's really like.
Really brilliant. Well done. There we go. I get a little goosebump every time I see that shot, that little aerial shot. Just before I forgot to ask, how many people have seen Jasper Jones? You can't count tonight. All right, another big audience. There we go. Film movers. I hope that's reflective of the audiences that we're going to be, in the future for this film. Okay, Vincent, how did this come about for you? You're working with another production company as well. We should acknowledge as part of the process. And tell us how this.
Yeah, David Jowsey at Bunya Productions. I read the book when it came out, and it was one of those books that you kind of read in one sitting, and I really enjoyed it, and I thought it was a gripping kind of mystery. You know, it had a great kind of engine within the book itself where it was a real page turner. But then I also saw the reaction online to it. And I think the thing that surprised me a little but was kind of really inspiring was that it really connected to kids. Youth were, it was a murder mystery, and it was kind of pretty tough in parts as well. But
can I be done? How are you assessing that? Are you looking at who's commenting on this sort of stuff, or are you getting?
Yeah, I just kind of read. I read reviews, and these days when you read reviews, there's comments underneath, and then you get a chance to kind of assess who's who's responding to it. And I think that's the thing. I thought that I was really surprised at just how a younger generation were responding to it, and older women. That's so and they, I went to then see Craig Silvey speak, the author, and there was a real talent in him too as a kind of an author of this material, and it had a great message. It had a great kind of message in it especially for a younger generation. So.
How long ago was this happening?
So I read that in 2009. Yeah. And David and I, came to the rights kind of very lucky. David did. I was kind of chasing them, and someone else had them, and it was a kind of friend of or partner of that David was working with, and they needed another producer involved. So he kind of approached me. So that was kind of lucky, fortuitous at that stage.
But it all worked out.
Yes, it all worked out for the week.
It's interesting, the gestation of these things and how long, in practice, many projects take. I think a lot of people that don't know how the industry works expect these things to be very short, sharp exercises. Of course, years and years of development really to get to a place. In terms of that process and getting it ready to finance, what were the key things that were, on the table that everyone needed to see to give you the green light? Because I don't know if that was a fast or slow process or laborious.
We knew we had a property that had a value, because as soon as we got some script development money from Screen Australia, we attached Sean Grant, who did Snowtown, just off the back of that success. And as soon as it was announced in the Screen Australia newsletter that we had script development money, and so that it was clear we had the rights to the film, 4 distributors in Australia rang us straight away. So, because they saw it as a popular. But the film by that stage,
it'd been made into a play. Sorry,
it hadn't been made into a play yet. But the book by that stage was selling extraordinary numbers. It was in the top 20 books to read for 5 years. That's the first time for an Australian title for many years. So
how difficult? Maybe this is a question we get explore later. But is it a real mucky exercise to try to get the rights to some of these things that come off online for a window, and you've got everyone's charming the publishers, and how difficult in practice?
It's a hard question to answer, because sometimes, like, I actually optioned a Liane Moriarty book around the same time, and about a year ago, a television producer said, "I can't believe that those books were on the shelves for so many years and all the rights are available." So, and then suddenly, every studio in America has every book tied up now. So, hopefully that answers the question. Sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's not. I mean, getting in early on that was essential.
And how did
the executive producer, Rebecca O'Brien, was the person who kind of managed to secure the rights.
And you're working with Rachel Perkins, who directed, and a cast that is probably some well-known, some less known. The young guy could just come off Red Dog Blue.
Levi Miller. And Pan.
Yes.
He's in Pan.
Yeah. So how did that work as an ensemble? How did it work in...
It was a cast of young actors, so we knew that they had to be, I suppose, relatively unknown. And we thought that that's how we would be casting the film. We could cast them as 17 or 18-year-olds playing younger. Was that going to work? Could that work? But casting the two boys, Jasper and Charlie played by Leva Miller, and finding them and then casting around that. And we did, once we knew those two roles and the age they were, then we could kind of cast around that. But we felt we had to kind of cast at the age, because it's a coming of age film. It's about a kid right on the cusp of that big change, of discovering the truth about the world, and about his parents and about the town and all those things.
Where did you shoot? What town is it?
We shot in a town called Pemberton in Western Australia.
WA.
Mm.
And it's a period shoot, which Bob's done. You've done a lot of period, but that is an expensive, difficult exercise.
It is. It's expensive because everything's got to be recreated to a certain extent, or you're found of that period. Everything, cars, street lights, antennas, right through. I mean, the town we found was, it's got about 6 or 7 streets in a row which are built out of the forest. It's a mill town. It's the last big mill town. It's closed since then, actually. And so all those towns were kind of as they were between 1920 and 1956, and they're all heritage listed, and you can't change the fences or anything, and they looked just perfect. So you got to always find something that's got good bones to build on. We couldn't start from scratch, although we built the pub.
Can I just, and one quick sort of question, and maybe this is linked to some of everyone so far in the conversation. There's an intensity to some scenes, but there's an intensity specifically in some of the stuff you've done. There's some pretty dramatic moments. Preparing actors for that experience, the sort of care that you've got to give an environment for the type of work that people are exposing themselves to. Do you want to just comment on how you might go about that in your duty of care, I suppose, as the umbrella person looking after the whole exercise, which is really...
I think that was the thing that was encouraging about the book. Like, it didn't shy away from the tough themes about racism and murder and bigotry in a small town, and all of those things were in the book. And it was that's what I loved about it. But it had a lightness of touch, and that's the author Craig Silvey kind of captured that. So he was able to tell a great kind of riveting murder mystery, and kids would get to the book, and this is why it's on the curriculum, is that people enjoy this read, then they get to the end of it and they can talk about what it's about, and often not realising what it's about too. So, we had to be truthful to it. We couldn't kind of shy away from that at all, and I think that's always the foundation, is that you need to be truthful to the characters and the world and the story. And if you start to second judge there in order to grab an audience, I think that's when you're in dangerous ground. Yeah.
How's it been received? How's it gone?
Well, we did reasonably well in the box office. I don't think a producer would ever say they wouldn't like more. But we did we nudged 3 million here, which was we were happy with. And
I think 3 million in this day and age is something like almost 10 million a few years ago.
Yeah.
It's an strange circumstance we find ourselves in.
I'll take that. And internationally, it was always going to be a tough sell.
Because of the Australianness of it?
Yeah, it did. And also, I think the black-white relation in an Australian context is easily understood, but in an American or just a Northern Hemisphere context, it's a lot. It's more difficult. And our sales agent said it's just a really different, perspective on that, and they won't see it as anything but kind of inaccurate rather than having an Australian point of view. So foreign's been fine. We've recouped the MG and selling into lots of territories, release in North America and in the UK, theatrical, limited, but having one there. So happy with that.
And can I be? People may be aware that there's a return that people receive from collecting agencies through school curriculum programs via screen rights. I was wondering if there's an opportunity there that potentially Melissa may be missing out on, because I'm sure that Hounds of Love isn't quite yet on the syllabus.
Undeniably,
potentially for school kids.
I don't think it will ever be on the
there
syllabus.
we go.
There's a long tail because the book is so popular, and it's the box office is one thing, and that was good. But that was all about getting the film out there for the other rights. And these days, digital revenue and certainly screen rights in this is where the value is, I suppose.
We might touch on that as a group exercise, because I think, Bob, I've spoken to you in the past, sometimes you've had hits and misses in the past for digital, and it's interesting seeing where the money trail is. I'm interested also in, if we pivot slightly in a minute to Sonja and where the money opportunities are for factual television. But in the meantime, just tell us what you're up for the AACTA Awards for this brilliant production.
Only six awards. And
But you might win some.
I know Lion is just going to gobble them all up, yeah. So best film, best supporting actor in Hugo Weaving, production design, sound, costume.
Brilliant. All right. Would everyone please thank Vincent and congratulate him on the job well done. All right. Sonja Armstrong. This has to be one of my favourite reality shows. I don't know if you call it reality. Would you call it a reality documentary? We've got to be careful about language now. Lifestyle show, Gourmet Farmer, and I mean that very genuinely, because I grew up in Tasmania, and this is I think a very well done piece of television. Just before we go to the clip, who has seen Gourmet Farmer? No, okay. Well, get to the educated. Too young. I don't know what your audience. I must be out of your audience demo. This is the season 6. We're up to 4, 5.
Well,
what are we up to?
4. Then we did
4.
another. We did another Gourmet Farmer afloat. So kind of
okay. And this clip's from
the last
season.
one.
All right, let's have a little look.
My name is Matthew Evans. I was once a food critic living in Sydney. Now I'm a pig farmer in country Tasmania. Life in the country has taught me a lot about food production, with many challenges along the way. And now, we're embarking on our most ambitious project yet. We want people to experience how we live and taste the food we eat. So we're building a restaurant right here on the farm. From critic to farmer to restaurateur, how hard can it be? Although I say I don't care, I am glad that they understand what I'm doing here, which is the end result of a long journey. What I want it to be is, I think, like the extension of the farmhouse table. But after all these years, it is confronting being on the receiving end for a change.
I reckon easy 15, 15.5, that food out of 20, so that's a hat. And it's based on what are you trying to do, how well do you do it, and he's trying to educate people on where the food comes from, the effort that goes in, make people think a little bit more about what they're eating, and then serve them something absolutely delicious and non-fussy and familiar, then he's completely nailed that brief.
The restaurant may be one hat, but this life requires many. Farmer, father, shooter, builder, and chef. Our restaurant has taken a year to build, but I've been dreaming of it a lot longer than that. Well, now we're all testing the grounds for the next big project, and that's when we have the restaurant built. In my time down here, I've met some incredible people doing some incredible things. You strike me as a man who doesn't do a lot of things by formula.
Yes.
Okay.
People who follow their passion.
How hard can it be? Hey?
How hard is...
That's what you've got to say.
Good luck. I hope it's a roaring success.
As soon as you put it on there, it starts crackling and the juices and it just all drops off.
Who don't necessarily care what other people think.
Oh, look, you left a bit of steak on there for me. Hey, oh, yeah.
But if our dream can influence or inspire other people, then in a small way, the world becomes a better place.
Nice. Little clap. This was, you might want to just explain the background. This is a few years ago that this would have kicked off for you guys, but it's been a successful production for a number of years. Working with SBS, I was going to say that for those that haven't seen it, it's been repeating on SBS some of the older seasons, and it's able to be downloaded. Do you want to just give us the context of how you got to know Matthew and how this got put together?
Well, a long time ago, about 12, 13 years ago, I produced a series called Heat in the Kitchen, which followed Matthew over a year. He was the editor of the Good Food Guide, and We followed him after an awards night where he took a hat away from Aria, he gave a hat to Balzac, and he put Red Lantern on the map. And so we followed both the chefs and Matthew over the course of the year to see how the restaurants reacted. And we filmed in the kitchens, and we told the chefs we wouldn't tell them when Matthew would turn up, and he would turn up, and then you would see Matt Moran make 2 of everything, and give Matthew the better version. So that series was probably before there were any food series, really, I think, other than Jamie Oliver's Naked Chef.
Do you remember what year? Go back.
Because that must have been 13, 14 years ago. It was a long time ago. And we blew his cover because he was an anonymous food critic, and then he complained to me that now, I'd ruined his career and that he was moving to Tasmania. And I said, what are you going to do? And he said, I don't know, might buy a farm. And I said, and this is where, in physics they say, in an experiment, what's being observed, or the object of an experiment, once it's being observed, it changes. And so I said to him, well, if you buy a farm, maybe we'll make a show following you. And he bought one, and that's been the nature of our relationship. After every season of Gourmet Farmer, I say, well, what are you going to do next? And he goes, well, and I don't know. Like, it's interesting. I don't know if his life would have kind of unfolded exactly in the way it has without the series. So it's been an interesting relationship.
Has part of the series offset the cost of some of the things he's done for him and developed as a consequence? I'm wondering about the idea of how much of it how involved he's in the production, or is he just really a separate exercise you're observing?
It's a completely separate exercise. He just, he has plans. We beginning of every season, we sit down and work out potential storylines based on what he wants to do, and that's his thing, and then we just do our thing. And
for those that haven't seen it, it's a bit. I mean, there's a good life element of this. If you remember the people really discovering, but there's also I'm trying to think. It borrows from, in a positive way, I think, from a number of different ideas, and then sort of creates something quite unique in the Tasmanian setting with the characters that you wouldn't possibly dream would exist in that environment. I would have thought there's so many different people that you discover, and I know, Bob, you've done a series in the South Coast that almost kind of capture the kind of communities that no one would really know would be possible in these small towns and small regions. Do you want to describe some of those people and how you find them?
Because it's for SBS, they used to call it NESB content, non-English speaking background, and they said, well, we'll commission Gourmet Farmer, but there's got to be some NESBs in there. Kind of like, who? Like who? I just thought Tasmania was full of white people, and we've got Croatians and Greeks and Italians, Asians, all the real cross-section of Australia is in Tasmania. And then you've got people who just dedicate their lives to making fermentation crocks or, knives or just very specific artisanal things. And it's fantastic community. And when we made series 1, it was really ahead of the zeitgeist. No one was talking about where your food comes from. And this is a sort of a gentle way into that topic, and it's been gratifying that people write in quite often, telling us how it's changed their lives, that they've sold their homes, they've moved to Tasmania. One woman met the man of her dreams at the age of 40-something. So that's kind of it's worth making for that. Yes.
But then it has had very positive messages about the community and about real food sources and how actually, even in the clip, the reality of people's food, you don't shy away from showing anything in terms of how, I'm reminding myself of some of the things that probably were controversial when you showed animals getting killed and things like that.
Yeah, we got a complaint recently because we killed a chicken, and someone wrote in saying that we used the wrong method and all the rest of it. Like, okay, but they're not factory farmed chickens, so they have quite a good life. But I suppose it's on, where our food comes from is on everyone's lips now, and he's always been, a spokesman for where our food comes from. But this is it's a gentle kind of journey through that. It's meant to entice you, whereas with What's the Catch or For the Love of Meat, that's where we we take on more of an investigative journey with Matthew, where he takes on more confronting subjects, and but all be in an entertaining way with stunts and humour and so forth. So.
And you've shot this in Tasmania, and we talked a bit about regional. Everyone's worked in different parts of Australia. Tell us a little bit about shooting there and just the practical exercise of being down there and working with people that you might. I don't know if you had to fly people in or whether you were able to kind of work with the local community to shoot. Was it always a bit of a challenge in terms of those locations, or pretty straightforward? It was a very simple shoot a lot of the time, and a lot of it was being done to kind of just narrate in the right way afterwards? Or tell us a bit more about your process.
For the first season, we didn't know what we were doing, so the director, Max Burke, just moved there for a year, and we just followed him around and came up, produced the series. And then as we became more sophisticated, we would plan out our storylines and use a mix of... our directors have usually been Sydney or Melbourne-based. Yes. And local crew when we can, Okay. But they're very simple. I mean, it's cameraman. Often the director would just shoot himself.
Yes.
Because they're often one-on-one, and then a sound guy. So.
And tell us, it's a great thing to get a returning series. I think it's a golden dream for most people working in television to have this successful run. And tell us, has it sold well internationally? Has it done well for you as a product, or not so much?
Well, it's the highest rating food show ever on SBS.
Congratulations.
So that's good.
And they're really developing a lot of their brand to this type of product in terms of food, and they've built a whole channel around it.
Yes. No, it hasn't. I do another show with Shane D'Elia from Melbourne, and that show sells everywhere. It's sold in over 50 countries. I think because it's a travel show, whereas this one is set in Australia, and it's sold to France, I think, and some other countries. But no, it's and I think those stories are being told all over the world.
Right. Okay. And first time you've been up for an award, is that right? For
Gourmet Farmer in the lifestyle category. Again, we like to call it a documentary, but.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations. Congratulate Sonja and the team behind that show. Great. All right. We've got a few minutes to open up the floor for questions, and I think because we're recording, we might have to run around with some of the microphones here to offer you so we can record. Oh, we got one. Hi, waving. This is a great opportunity to ask some questions about the shows or about the producers or about what they're doing. Any tips or tricks? They're very happy to reveal every item in their budget lines for every payment that was ever made to any of their cast, crew, directors. No. Hi. Do you want to just introduce yourself and who you are and what you're...
Yeah, am I on? Yeah. I'm Jackson. I'm a producing student here at AFTRS. And I guess I wanted to dig into Melissa. You worked with Ben, who we saw. He was in some of the things earlier today. And I don't know, it can be a question for everyone, but the nature of a producer's relationship with the director and how that manifested with Ben, how tight that relationship was, how where the creativity was coming from a lot of the way through. He mentioned sort of I guess a re-edit of the beginning, and so, I'd just love to hear your opinion on that.
So I was lucky enough to be on from concept stage, so I was there from the very beginning. And Ben is an incredibly hardworking writer-director, so if there was a problem that needed to be solved or there's a question that needed to be asked, I would call him. I didn't have to get in line, I didn't have to wait for anything. And if that meant it was, and I didn't do that to him at 6 a.m. on a Sunday morning, but if it was midday on a Sunday and I needed an answer to a question, I called him and he picked up every time. So that was a really important thing, is that our communication was constant. He's a fantastic collaborator. So he was very respectful of my process, I was very respectful of his process, and I think that respect goes a long, long way, because if it starts from the top down, there was so much respect for our crew and for especially the post-production process. So that re-edit that you mentioned, we were 2 weeks away from picture lock and the first part of the film wasn't working. And he pitched an idea to me and he said, I think I can cut together some elements which were taken from different scenes, and we can create this mood that's not present in the current cut. And when he pitched it to me, I said, "You're a genius, that's fantastic." And he goes, "We're going to work on a little re-edit." And I saw it and I said, "Just keep doing that. We've got 2 weeks. Just keep doing that." And after the first week, I knew that we cracked it. And it's that open communication that he knew he could ask that of me. He didn't feel embarrassed that we hadn't got there yet. And so I think that's just really important. The rapport, the communication, the collaboration was so integral to the success of the story and the film.
Brilliant. Anyone else want to tackle that question? I suppose it's really about the relationships and how you maintain that, and there's got to be, I think there's, many people, I think, would appreciate that producers have often a great deal of creative input into the process, and sometimes navigating that with other elements in the production can be quite a challenge sometimes, but how that works. Do you want to comment on their relationships across other elements of the
I can only speak for television. We're not nearly brave enough to do feature films. Television works differently in that there's an idea that's pitched, networks give you some development funding, then it's all about the story. It goes into a writer's room, and typically 2 of 6 scripts are delivered to a network. Then they give it the final green light in the writer's room, go and write the balance of the 6 or 8 scripts, and then more often than not rewrite the first 2 scripts. So that's a very producer-driven or production company or producer-driven process. Then the director's invited to come in, and it's much more, the auteur model in television is rare with writer-directors. It's not unknown, but it's not typical, at least at our company. And so the directors, later to the process, but integral to it and important creatively and very important in terms of getting the thing done on time and on budget. So the director, the location guys are all critical to that. So it's a different relationship, as important but different.
Or follow-up.
Yeah,
here we go. I don't mind anyone else in the room. No, go for it. I'm joking.
I will. I just wanted to, I guess, maybe push past the structural, and I wanted to get into the personal. And like, were there moments on, say, Jasper Jones or on Hounds of Love where you didn't trust a decision, or where you were at a point where you had a disagreement, and how do you push through that? And were there moments where you're like, I don't agree with you, but we'll go your way?
I know we're going out on Facebook.
I think
and recording.
Trust and respect are the 2 key words there. And when you, in a feature film context, and I think Bob's right. That television and feature film operate very differently, and how they're kind of produced, and where from the seed of an idea right through, and the commissioning process and everything influences those kind of things. But for a feature film, and especially with Jasper Jones, which is interesting for our company because we've always been kind of director driven, so most of the projects leading up have been writer-director projects, either original ideas or books that were adapted with a director involved from an early stage. But this one was, we had a property, and we had, when distributors rang us, we also had directors ring us, and saying, I want to be involved. So we had a list of about 10 directors who had approached us and wanted to be involved. And the process then was about, kind of interviewing. We didn't interview every one of them. By the time we got close to production, it was availability and who had remained engaged with us and really wanted to do it. So with Rachel, who I'd known for a while but never worked with, when she came through, she kind of just would not let us go. She really wanted to do it, which was a great, it's what you want to see in a director, that they have to tell this story. And she really understood the material. But then we had to form a relationship before we shoot. There wasn't a lot of time between that. So, are you still interested? Or do you need to get that? No. So, and for me, because that time was short, it was about having a very open and frank kind of conversation between David, Rachel, and I, finding out how she wants to work. And one of the things I realised really early on with her, and this is what I wanted to do, was how does she operate? How does she direct? What does she like to do? What is her process? And I was involved with a lot of the auditions that we were doing for all the kids, and we had a long rehearsal period with them, which is a process about trying to work out how. So I could see exactly how she was going to work as a director, because I didn't understand that. Then it was going to be very hard to be supportive, but also to challenge her when I thought I needed to. So I think you have to develop a really kind of close relationship with someone and have that lines of communication really open and kind of frank, and be able to talk about things. But be respectful too, so that you're not like standing around right next to her in the split. She needs to have that authority on set, and everyone needs to know that she's in control. That's crucial, especially with A-list cast coming in from America, like Toni Collette. When they turn up, they want to know that the director knows what they're doing. That's really important. So, yeah, hopefully that's helpful.
Good question. Next, anyone? Oh, you're the only questions. This is like, there we go. Anyone else? Really? Yeah, great. Just wait for the microphone. Again, just if you can introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Hi there, I'm Bryony. I'm a producer, just having graduated as well from AFTRS.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I'm familiar with most of your slates, so I was just interested to know if somebody like me were to approach you. You seem each to have a brand in terms of, you really like your heavy dramas or thrillers and that kind of thing. I just wanted to know if you could detail those for me and us.
Pitching to the pitcher. There we are. What's your slate? What sort of work have you got going on? It's not a bad question.
It's a very good question. I wish I knew the answer.
Nothing in the tank, Bob. Is that what you're saying?
Our company's built on we try to fly on two wings. One is the drama strand, and one is the factual entertainment strand. And we've really achieved that. We've often had great success in drama and no success in entertainment, and vice versa.
I'd say pop stars did pretty well.
Yeah. But right now, the coincidence is we're doing okay in both. So our, I suppose, utopia for us is a handful of returning contemporary series that are relevant to the Australian audience and have the potential to sell overseas. Period's very hard. Male-skewing drama is tough. We've done a fair bit of it, but it's tough to sell. So female-skewing contemporary drama that's got a chance of surviving beyond 6 episodes is what we dream about. On the left hand, on the right hand, it's Arndo's Brush with Fame. It's pop stars. It's RBT. It's it's basically screen time inflicting our bad taste on the unsuspecting general public, I suspect. But again, it's efficiently produced factual shows that have a chance of coming back beyond a season. And in those 3 instances you've seen, they've all occurred and been, in some cases, in the 9th and 10th season. And I'm sure Sonja would agree with that you've had most success in something that's lasted, and deservedly so, for that length of time, and that's what we all want.
Do you want to tackle, maybe before we go to Melissa and Vincent, do you want to talk about your site? Because Essential's got a balance as well, hasn't it?
Well, it did. We sold our drama division a few months ago. So Ian Colley now works for Fremantle Media under the moniker Easy Tiger. And Chris Hilton, who's the CEO, is fairly unstoppable, as you know. And, we might be doing something in that space again. But right now we're developing the US business. We produce a show that you may have seen here called Texas Flip and Move. And that's just been a huge success for us. And now we're renovating over 100 houses all across America, various, different types of shows. So our DNA was always a little, posh doc or highbrow, I guess. But when we set up an office in LA a few years ago, we thought we'd do the same, but we just happened upon, this talent in Texas, and it's just done really well for us.
And more of any of the Gourmet Farmer series and other
series? Yeah. Financing a new Gourmet Farmer, and then I'm doing something similar with Shane D'Elia, following his life. So that's going to be on in January, and always interested in the place. But I think for us, in factual, my daughter said to me the other day, and to Chris, when is television going to stop? Why are you still making TV? I don't watch it. Right. And we're responding to that. So we're looking increasingly into the digital space and making content that will sit across any platform. And
sort of SVOD commissions and that sort of things that we mean.
Yeah, well, I've just produced our very first brand-funded show, daytime show, Sammy and Bella's Kitchen Rescue, which I'm very, very proud of. That we pulled that one off, but also just content that just sits on digital platforms, because that's how young people are consuming content, and that's what we need to pivot to, for sure.
And I mean, they're slightly understating, both Essential and Screen Time have had incredible success and multiple series across multiple networks all at once. I think the slates have been very extensive, so congratulations. All right, Vincent, do you want to talk a little bit about Porchlight? Pitching to the crowd.
Our brand, traditionally we've been in feature films for drama. We started off doing television documentaries, and we moved into feature films, and it's always been kind of driven by writer-directors, and high-end calibre of talent, actors, marquee talent involved, from A Little Fish with Kate Blanchett and The Hunter, Willem Dafoe, Robert Pattinson, The Rover, and we're doing Mary Magdalene, a co-production with Cecil, which has Rooney Mara and Joaquin Phoenix. And next up is True History of the Kelly Gang by Justin Kurzel, who did Snowtown and Macbeth, with Russell Crowe and Nicholas Hoult. So we have kind of taken that brand and moved it into television with the Kettering incident, which was, in a similar way, we had film directors coming in. We only had 2 directors, like we didn't do it in the traditional television way. So we're kind of taking a lot of the way we worked into that high-end drama space. And having said that, though, we would certainly like to be, as Bob said, the long-running series is gold, and we're looking to do that in the future. We've got a couple of things heading in that direction. But the next series, Peter Duncan, who did Rake, doing a series with Peter on the ABC. And co-productions with partners in the UK. So we certainly want to be doing bigger international television shows while we're still doing the feature films.
Great. Melissa, do you want to talk a little?
So being a Perth-based production company, we don't have the same, I think, opportunities that Sydney or Melbourne-based production companies do have with regards to being able to produce TV content. So being a Perth, and we're a boutique-sized company as well. So we have an eclectic slate. We have made 2 thriller genre feature films, but we prefer to look at bold storytelling, working with auteur directors. We, in the last 12 months, delivered two Indigenous short films, an Indigenous comedy series for ABC, and Hounds of Love. So you can see that we are genre agnostic, but it is about working with quality filmmakers and with bold storytelling.
There we go. All right. That answered that question nicely. Yes, tick. Next, anything else anyone wants to ask? I think we're coming to a close soonish, so we're a little bit over time. But yeah, please, maybe any other questions after this one? We might wrap it after this one. Okay. There's a microphone coming to you just as you wait.
Hi, my name is Angie. I'm a producer. I'm currently doing some co-productions. So my question is, what do you think? What is most important, like the investment, profit return, or the production quality? Some producer they care like what they can return for the investor, and some producer they probably care like whether you can win the film festival awards.
Where your priorities sit. And
it's very general.
We have external shareholders, so we run it as a business. We always have had external shareholders. We report to those shareholders monthly. We have budgets and targets and profitability. So for me, keep the awards and give us the money. It's easy.
How are your external shareholders, Melissa?
None. I guess it's about quality work because we live from job to job. So is it about film festivals? Is it about returns? It's about all of the above. It's ensuring that each and every time we're making a project which is good enough to secure the next one. Of course, we want to hit an A-list festival. Do we want to see our projects on TV? Absolutely. But we don't have the same responsibilities that Bob's company might have. And on certain feature films, we don't need to see a return, but we do need to ensure that it has either met with the market, met with an audience, escalated, for example, the director into the next realm, so that we are continually learning and progressing. To make a film which had an audience of one would be remiss, would be a poor return for everybody, for us included.
Good point. I wonder who sleeps better at night out of you four by the end of this conversation. There's all multiple masters in all of the things everyone does. Vincent?
We have shareholders, but they're us in the company, so there's no external shareholders. Awards are great, but audiences is the key. I mean, that's what you want to do. You want to reach audiences. And you don't. Some series never win awards, but they reach huge audiences, and some films don't do huge returns, but they reach huge audiences. And the returns on those films are in the relationships you develop and the next project. So I think especially with films, there's a kind of a long goal with that. And so in a film like Animal Kingdom, with the relationship with David Michaud, which my partner Liz Watts has, she's producing another film with him next year of a grander kind of scale with bigger international partners. And the series, Animal Kingdom, the film was turned into a television series. So, the initial factors going into that first film with David were risky in a commercial sense, I think, because they were, it was a really tough story, an unknown director and no major international cast. Ben Mendelsohn, Guy Pearce was the person in a second-tier role that got that finance, but the long-term, that defines the kind of long-term goals we have often with projects and the relationships we have, is that the returns may not come in the first series, but they will come in future ones from there.
Sonja?
Well, we've always been driven by content, and as documentary or factual producers, it's about wanting to communicate with people, and awards are a side thing, but it's always been our intent from the day we started the company to make it a viable going concern. And if you're going to do that, you have to diversify. So we diversified across different genres in factual, from everything from food shows to high-end documentary series, and now in the United States to factual entertainment. So you want to make the money, and you want to you want to be satisfied by the content is of a high quality. So Australia is such a small market that I think diversity is the key.
Who says you can't have it all? You should be able to make money and win awards at the same time. You've got to have it. You've got to have it all. That's right. All right, let's call it a day there. Can you look? I want to thank you very much for being here and participating. Thank you for the questions, but particularly, can you all join in thanking the wonderful producers and wishing them all the best for the AACTA Awards? Great. Thanks, guys.